Consistently showing up online is the key to success. Are you struggling with that? You're not alone. In this episode, I interview Fay Chan, who I've known for probably about 8 years, and she's always been consistent in showing up and doing the work. Initially, I knew her as someone who helped people get organised with their personal finances, and in more recent years as an EFT or emotional freedom technique practitioner. So in this episode, we have a great chat. We talk about how she has stayed consistent and what lies beneath people's tendency to self-sabotage their success, whether it be with being consistent, whether it be around their money, or just their life in general. This is an interesting one. Enjoy. Welcome to Magnetic Pod. If you are looking to attract your soul clients while doing the work you love, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Olivia D'Souza. I'm a podcast manager and content repurposing specialist. The Magnetic Pod Show is about attracting your soul pod of clients through podcasting. It will also include things that can be applied to other areas of your marketing strategy too. Hit subscribe to join me in calling in the people we are here to help. Let's make a massive impact.
I am here and I'm ready to be brave. Cannot miss me, I'll stand on every stage. I'm available for my destiny to reach my people.
Hey friend, before we dive into today's episode, remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the tips we share in Magnetic Pod on podcasting, lead generation, and business boosting ideas. And remember, if you have or you're thinking about starting a podcast, head over to my website at livymusicmedia.com/freebies. I have loads and loads of free resources and templates that will help you get started. The link is in my show notes. Now, here's your show. Hey Faye, welcome to Magnetic Pod.
Hey Olivia, thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to it. Okay, so I'll introduce you, shall I?
Yep, sure.
Okay, well, I have known Fay Chan for, I don't know how many years now, quite a few years.
Quite a few years, yeah.
Let me see. I would have been through Mum Life Community, I think.
Yes.
And so my son is 8, so I must have known you for about 8 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
So Mum Life Community is a Facebook group that I used to be an admin of, and we used to go to meetups, and it still does, but I'm not part of the group anymore. And I met Fay through that group and became friends, and I've seen her consistently show up online really well all through that time. So back then, Fay was a personal budgeting coach.
Yes.
And she always regularly showed up to talk about that and how to help people through that. And then a few years back, Fay pivoted, and she is now a certified EFT practitioner. So that EFT stands for, remind me again.
Emotional freedom technique.
That's it. And Fay helps her clients gain calm, clarity and confidence. And today she wants to chat with us about, this could go in all sorts of directions, who knows, but we were going to touch on that consistency that you've had all of these years and how that has helped you in your business with your lead generation, because that's what we like to help people with. But anything business related that helps people make more money, save time, all that, that's all relevant as well. So Let's dive into it. Let's talk about the fact that you did pivot. Why did you decide to go into EFT?
Well, when I was working as a personal budgeting consultant or coach, it was a needed service for quite a lot of people, and everybody identified with it, right? However, I was actually dealing, rather than the strategy, which is the budget and the planner, the spending plan. Mm-hmm. When I'm talking about money, people are actually quite triggered about such a heavy topic. Mm-hmm. And when people are triggered, they're actually dealing with their emotions or dealing with the meanings attributed to money, and it grips them. So as in my previous business as a consultant, I needed to move them from the grippingness of what money meant to them, what they did and didn't have. And I needed to move them across from the grippedness as such across to the strategic. And I found it really tough and really difficult. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because money is such a loaded topic, it was really hard to shift that. So I was already dealing with the emotional angst of a certain topic. So it was just a natural pivot for me across to the emotional pipeline from the strategic pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
which really worked on my experience of being a personal coach in the personal training development industry, as well as being a spiritual person as well. So I've done some spiritual courses too. And the intention of budgeting was really to make a difference through the access of the budgeting, right? That would be the vehicle. So instead of using a vehicle, I just went for the jugular. And then I go straight into the emotional stuff, right? So that really spoke with me. And I already knew my trainer for EFT for about 10, 12 years at that point. So I already knew about tapping. It wasn't new to me. I knew how it worked. I was a client of my trainer. So I was already using it for myself in everyday life. And it was just a natural pivot and, I guess, transgression across to being a tapping practitioner. So that's how come I've pivoted.
So you've embraced the woo-woo side and you're putting them together because you're very practical as well. Like you had all those hands-on stuff, but you've embraced both sides.
Yeah.
Actually, because I think I remember, I don't know if it was you that posted or someone posted like some sort of woo-woo post of, I don't know if it was psychic readings or something. I think there was some frustration you felt like people will go for all the magical stuff, but they wouldn't face the...
Yes, that was regarding, that was in my budgeting money days, actually.
Yes.
Because everyone would go, and because of the uncertainty of anxiety, people will always go for readings, let's just say, or, ask the tarot cards 10,000 questions because they're wanting to know an answer. The uncertainty is uncomfortable. And same with money, right? The uncertainty is uncomfortable. People aren't rigorous with what they say. They'll say things like, oh, it's round and about. It's about that much. Maybe this, maybe that. But they're never sure about it being $0, $5,000 or somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000, right? So they're really not rigorous with their information. And so I saw that, nothing to do with readings and tarot cards and stuff like that, because I believe in that stuff myself. However, when people use it as a crux to determine certainty, that's when I know it's an anxiety they're trying to alleviate. It has nothing to do with what the future beholds. So, I do come from a very practical standpoint. Even inside tapping, everything is still very practical because it's really about acknowledging what's there, what isn't there, before you go and work on the affirmations. People don't come to tap on affirmations and tap on, money will come easily to me, right? I look for what's coming up against, money will come easily to me. So we're looking at what doesn't work about something, what we call tail enders, and because that's where the strong belief or disbelief system is held. And so we work on that first before creating the affirming at the end of the session.
Actually, that's what I do love about the approach of EFT because, you hear all this stuff about, what's the word, law of attraction and stuff like that.
Yes.
Your thoughts have power and there's some truth in that, I think, but it can lead you to be scared of thinking anything negative, and I think that they need to come up, those negative thoughts, so it kind of releases them, the approach.
Yes, exactly. Because often it's the negative thoughts that are coming true. Otherwise, you won't be frantically searching for the positive. Right? And so as much as, if you're chanting something or saying a mantra or doing some mirror work or anything like that to try and elicit the positive, or, the fake it till you make it, feel it in your body, and then the universe and the reality follows. That's all true in terms of the law of attraction. But if you really want to be, again, rigorous about your thought process and rigorous about what it is and what it isn't, usually it's over the top of an anxiety. So if you recognize the anxiety itself, you literally release the anchor, which is holding you back, rather than trying to work against the anchor. Like if a ship was traveling along and there's an anchor, but it was strong enough to pull the anchor along, it doesn't mean the ship won't move forward. It still will. right? But that's like not recognizing your anxiety. That's the anchor, and trying on top of it, be positive and push through all the time. You still will move forward, but at a much slower rate. But if you deal with the anchor, sever the anchor, release it, you're just going to push forward so much faster.
Makes it a lot easier, and that's without the resistance anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so shall we get into the consistency thing that you wanted to talk about? Tell me your approach. How do you do it? How do you keep showing up online consistently?
That's been, well, I've developed that forte of mine. It's, at the start, it was really quite hard and difficult because I remember trying to do some videos with the Mornington Peninsula Business Women's Group at that time.
Yeah.
And they had some challenge on and I had to do videos. And this was like 6 or 7 years ago when it was very new to do videos and vlogs. I was really quite confronted about speaking on camera myself. When you just have to show up, my theory is you don't know what you're dealing with until you do it and do it consistently over time.
Yeah.
Like if you're starting a new business, you want to find your voice, you want to find your niche, you want to find your strategy. It isn't to find your strategy on day 0 and then do it from day 1.
Yeah.
You do it consistently for 50 days. And then at the 50-day mark, you go, what's my strategy? Because the refinement and the discernment's already there for you. You've got 50 days worth of, I don't know, speaking in front of the camera, posting every day, seeing what feedback comes through, what works and doesn't work, and refining your own style, your natural style, because everybody's got their own natural style.
Yeah.
Right? What you like and don't like, and what you gravitate to speaking about, what you don't gravitate to speaking about. Right? And unless you're in the doing of it, that stuff doesn't show up. And then that's when you refine and discern. But a lot of people go, oh, I need a website first, right? Or I need to get my strategy right first. I need to know who I'm speaking to in order to write my post, do my video. When my approach is completely the opposite. It's like, just go and do it, right? Give yourself, just say 100 days of doing it every single day, and it will show up because you'll then know, first of all, you've got 100 days under your belt of doing. And so what you like or don't like, what people respond to or don't respond to will show up in the 100 days too. So I did that with Budgeting 123, and my husband set up the Facebook page and just said, here you go. And I went, all right, I'll just test it out. I had no idea how to use Canva at that time, no idea which apps to use for videos or things like that, nothing. No, I had to just learn.
Yeah.
Some of my posts rave back from back then. Gosh, my son was like 1.5 years old when all this started. Like, it was just crappy posts. I just made it up. Like, whatever came out of my head, I just plonked onto a post and posted it.
Yeah.
And then through time, it's just refined itself. And then when I was ready to pivot across to EFT, so that built on what I had already built. Rather than starting again, I wasn't starting again, even though I was dealing in a different, category altogether. And I guess discipline, for one of a better word, is quite testing, is quite trying. You just got to make yourself. It's like turning up to Bikram yoga session when you don't really feel like it. You just have to make yourself. And then when you're there, you're like, oh, thank God I'm here. Or like any PT sessions or going out for a walk, or, you're dreading doing the dishes, and once it's done, you feel better. So it's to catch yourself in those moments where you don't want to and still pushing through. And so that's when the practice of the habit shows up, and that's how discipline gets crafted out of you. So, yeah, that's my thing, consistently showing up.
Showing up even when you don't want to. And I think also facing it and doing the thing is also less scary. I mean, that's one thing I find with that podcast too, that I do start with some strategy, like a direction to go in and help people with that. But I always think it's likely to evolve, and people often put off starting a podcast, and this applies to anything in the business or anything in life, that, we put it off because it's scarier than actually facing it. Once you face it, you think everything's overwhelming and but facing it and actually starting is often
Well,
the hardest bit. So,
yeah, that's half the battle won at that point.
yeah. So, and then you do learn along the way. So what have you learnt along the way?
Not to talk about the trigger points.
Interesting, really.
Yeah. So I did an experiment actually with this other mothers group that you and I are in as well on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So through the years, and I mean years, budgeting 123 and tapping days, through the years, I've had literally 0 to no responses to my post. Right?
Right.
None. 1 or 2 tags, people might sign up, may not sign up, but I hardly get any clients coming from that particular group.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a really safe group to experiment in.
That's interesting.
So the other day, it was only 2 weeks ago. So I did a post a couple of weeks ago about my transition from budgeting 123 to tapping as a reflection post, like a blog post. And that got a lot of traction. And then literally the next day, I had a referral from a financial planner for budgeting. Of all things, I'm like, okay, the universe has spoken. So great, got a new client. And that brought the conversation back of, the couple that he pays for A, B, and C, and she pays for D, E, and F. Mm-hmm. And it's not a pool of money. And if you're wanting to assess a household in terms of money, you need to consider the whole picture. Right? Just like if I'm tapping with someone, I need to understand the whole picture. That's why you always have to regurgitate your secrets to me, because otherwise I just don't know what I'm working with.
Yeah.
Right? And your body can't lie anyway, so it will come up anyway in the session.
You're going to get vulnerable.
It is. And so I thought, I'll just do that post in that Facebook group where all the mums have been completely silent. I write things like, I wrote a very going for the jugular post. And I said something like, I can't believe that if you're in a committed relationship, that people still pay things separately. He pays for A, B, and C, and she pays for D and F when I need to consider the whole pool, right? So it was really quite opinionated, judgmental as such, if you could land as such. And I posted it. And I got reactions. I got 3 like surprise or angry emojis, and one was a laughing emoji, and people wrote. People were actually triggered to write.
Yeah.
But luckily I'm not attached because I'm not talking about budgeting anymore.
Yeah.
But I know from the EFT point of view and working with anxiety and overwhelm and understanding emotional anchors, how to trigger. Like, people do that in marketing.
You say not to do that? That was a good thing to do, wasn't it? You got attention.
Well, I got attention, but I know with regards to money, which is it's a crazy, the topic's nuts, right? Not to do that with money because it'll get everybody on their high horse.
It's interesting because I remember listening to Abraham Hicks, not Abraham Hicks, but the person that channels.
Esther Hicks.
Hicks, yeah. Commenting that the things that she does on money are the ones that get the most views, get the most sales, get the most whatever.
Yeah.
So it must be the ones about how to get the money and attracting and all just all the positive,
correct,
feel-good bits.
Yeah.
They do ones, but the ones that are making people
accountable. Like the post I do. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's because I don't post, because the money posts that attract are people to talk about abundance, people to talk about how to have a better money mindset, how to create more wealth. And with certain financial practitioners, they'll talk about how to be creative with debt. Not for that.
Yeah.
Right? Because just like if you don't deal with the mud that's underneath the icing and the fondant and the sprinkles, right? And I'm talking about dirt, mud, not mud cake, right? The mud's still going to be there.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people rather talk about attracting money. Not a lot of people would talk about the ugliness stuff of money. Yeah. And so that I went there a lot with my posting, and I've learned to not go there with regards to money, even if I were to do a money post inside of EFT tapping.
Is there something, I remember you saying something about where you used to work for
my budget.
Merchant, right? And I saw a post somewhere where you said, someone asked you what your qualifications are, and you said, well, I'm Chinese and I've been budgeting since 2 or something, or saving since 2.
So a client came in. And he sat down. He was a guy probably in his 30s and, really formal with me. And he said, oh, what are your qualifications, Faye? And I said, well, I'm Asian and I've been saving since I was 2. And he just burst out laughing, right? And he goes, all right, just tell me what to do. Because it's not rocket science. A grade 6 can budget for you because you got this much money, you take away this much, you're left with this. And if you use too much, it's called negative. Yeah. That's all it is. It's not that hard.
But it is because we want this.
Without
my hands out wide. We only get her bringing in this. This is visual, not good for podcasting. Imagine my hands closer together. People don't want to face that bit. But the thing that interested me with that post, I guess, or that observation, is that is there a cultural thing? Like, did it come as a surprise, a different attitude? Is there something that...
is it easy?
Well, because you said I'm Chinese and I've been budgeting since I was 2.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? That's
a very cultural thing.
We have more fear as Westerners. We have more fear and rubbish around it, or what's
No. The fear's the same.
Okay.
The fear's the same with the ethnic population, as in Asians, Chinese Asians. It's all about saving for a better day.
Oh, so it's different. It's fear, but it just shows up differently.
It's still fear-based and anxiety-based. So you must save. You must do well at school. You must have enough money to buy yourself a house and 2 cars and invest in property and shares, right? So the looking good around money and wealth in the Asian society, culturally speaking, is all about survival and making sure that you don't have a hard life. Because historically in Asian countries, there's no social welfare. And so you either live on the streets or you go work and pay for it.
I see. So I find that...
So it's still fear-based and anxiety-based.
But it's more constructive, at least.
Well, there's a workability around it, right? Like with having or not having, it's better to have. It alleviates a lot of stress and anxiety with living. Now, for those that already have, though, then having more won't make a difference. And then they think they're chasing having more as fulfillment, when fulfillment is given by really contributing and making a difference, not trying to survive and get better.
Yeah.
So when you try to survive and get better, it's just your anxiety in play, collecting more and more evidence. So there'll be a lot of people out there that are quite well off and wealthy, let's say, because they've got that sort of, say, background, but they're anxious wrecks. Right?
Yes,
they might
exactly.
be antidepressants.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But I'm just addressing that the more you have in that case, like Maslow's triangle, it doesn't give you more. It's how you increase your utility as a person. Yeah.
So these days, I guess this gives you a tool to be able to address all these issues. Are you still helping people with money issues, or what are the kind of things that you're helping people with these days?
Insight tapping sessions?
Yes.
Yeah. So all sorts of issues. I've helped people with grief. I have helped people with money issues in terms of developing the business. Because they say they want to take themselves from here to there, like to the next level, and they don't know what it is that's blocking them. And often it's not as strategic. It's often an emotional block. So for a client of mine, she came to me wanting to increase her business, and she was at a place where she was ready for the next stage. And what came up was she was scared to hold other people accountable. Because when you grow and you have more collaborations, you have more interactions and contracts with other people and vendors and what have you, and you're dealing with personalities, there's always room for accountability. But she wouldn't. she would just go, oh, I won't chase that. I'll just give them the extra product or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so if you want to take your business to the next level, your accountability as a person to hold others to account comes into play. And so that was the block. Had nothing to do with her strategy.
Does doing this work hold a mirror up to yourself as well? Dealing with people's money issues and then going on to EFT where you're dealing with all of the issues. Do you ever see, is it ever a mirror to yourself? Have you learned about yourself along the way?
Yeah. So as a practitioner, we need to do our own personal work. Yeah. So I get my own tapping sessions once a fortnight. So for the last 3 years, I've been tapping fortnightly, right, for myself with another practitioner.
Yeah.
And when I'm tapping, say, for you as a client, my subconscious is also listening.
Yeah.
So it'll be working on its own variation, but I'm there doing the work for the client as such. And the reason we as practitioners need to do our own personal work is so that we don't get triggered in the middle of a session for a client.
Yeah.
Because if you deal enough with the stuff that comes up for you, right, you can hear secrets that are 3 decades old, or hear about sexual abuse, or hear about a divorce, or hear about, a grief for someone or a pet. You'll be able to hold space for the other person because you've dealt with your own stuff. So, so that you can do that. So for me, on top of getting my tapping sessions, I go to Bikram yoga and hot Pilates a lot. So I put myself in an environment where, well, it's not that I dislike it because I love it, right? But it's a mental test, and it depends. Like on a daily basis, I might rock up to Bikram last week and I was fine. And this week I might be on the floor for a third of the class because I just can't deal with it. So it's
everything. I haven't done it for years actually, but I did it once and it was incredible. I'd actually had to do some really stressful things at work and we had to let people go, and
yes,
it was awful, and it was in my body.
Yep.
That horrible tension, and I went along to Bikram not because of that, but it all just sort of, it was like it was wrung out, like when you wring out the laundry.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you end up working all your muscles. It's a 90-minute open eye meditation. You got to look at yourself in the mirror, whether you like it or not, right? And so you learn to then hold space. You learn to then deal with your own emotions, your own thoughts, on top of your own physical discomfort, because you're in a room. If you're dehydrated, you suffer through the whole 90 minutes. And the heat doesn't consistently stay at 40 degrees. There's a humidity aspect. It will go up as well. Like, just because it's 40 degrees doesn't mean the room doesn't increase in temperature, right? And so I've utilized Bikram to learn how to hold space for other people because I've dealt with holding my own space.
Yeah, incredible.
Right? So now I'm incorporating cold showers after Bikram.
That's a bit of a new buzz, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So we're running out of time though. So is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to share with people before we wrap up?
Yeah, that inside of consistency, you'll learn a hell lot about yourself, but you got to apply to consistency so that the lessons and the messages do have an opportunity to show up. And if you shy away from it, the learning's not going to be had and you're still back at the same spot.
Exactly. Consistency. It's number one. That's my word of the year, actually, is consistency, and it definitely applies to podcasts as well. Well, how can people reach you?
You can follow me on my Facebook page. Living Well with Fay is the social handle, and same with Instagram, Living Well with Fay.
Excellent, and we'll put those in the show notes. Thanks so much, Fay.
Excellent. No, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So what were your key takeaways from today? Did it raise any questions? What would you like to know more about? Let me know. You can contact me via social media or email. I don't care which way you use, just reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you. And remember, you can get access to lots of free podcast resources that will help you get started or help you improve your podcast at livymusicmedia.com/freebies. Hit subscribe because I want to see you again. But for now, go forth, be the awesome person you are, live the life you want to live, and have fun. You've got this. See you next time.
Show them who I
Hello, it's Livy here. Have you ever wondered about what the key elements are that make a podcast truly stand out? Or maybe you're thinking about starting your own special podcast and feel a bit overwhelmed and don't know where to start. Well, I have something for you. Introducing the ultimate podcast checklist. Da, 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 da. It's a step-by-step guide that covers everything from the initial brainstorming to advanced growth strategies. It's the perfect companion for both new and seasoned podcasters. And the best part, it's absolutely free. Da, 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 da. To grab your copy, simply head to the show notes of this episode and you will find a direct link there, and then away you go. Remember, every podcast started with that initial spark and the right resource, so let the ultimate podcasting checklist be yours.